Hey guys, and welcome to another Santa video. It was just a couple months ago that I did the first Santa video. Here's a thumbnail of that particular video. Now on that haul, it was actually about 200 guns, not all of them laid out on the floor, but this is a similar haul. We drove not too far distant. It was a nice little road trip and picked up all these guns from one collection. What I'm going to do is not go into a lot of detail, but I'm just going to do an overview, pick out a few interesting ones, but there's a little bit of everything, including German pistols, and then we have some Colt, 1911 Colts, and then against the radiator, also known as a rifle rack, we have Garands, we've got a couple sniper rifles, and then some M1 carbines. So I'm going to go through these fast and furious. Sounds like a good name of a movie. So hang on, grab a drink, and have a seat. We're going to go through some guns. And all of these will be available on our website if you want to check them out there. Okay, all the way to the right of this pile, let's start with a grouping of PPKs. Again, not going through every one of them. The first one is a 22 caliber. You'll notice on the 22 caliber, because the caliber is so small, the slide has that. You can see right away when I'm like walking a gun show and I look at the two slides. You can see right away that the 22 caliber has a bevel to make it a thinner slide. This is a 22 caliber, and the magazines are pretty unique. This one does have a button. Most of the early ones do not have the button. So my first impression might be this is a later war and not appropriate, but this is actually right before they do the black grip. It's actually in the 343 serial range, 343,000. And that's just about the time they went to the black grip. So that magazine actually might be correct for this gun. So when I did the comparison, I pulled up a DRP. Now we just did, if the last Santa video I did, I had some rifles that were marked DRP, and we mentioned that that was the German post office. If you're in Germany, tell me how your post office is working, because here in the United States, all of our packages are sitting in warehouses a week or two before they get delivered. Very frustrating, but hopefully you're doing better at the German Postal Service. This is a very rare gun. German Postal Service, they're always early. Notice the 90-degree safety. 90-degree safety later became a 60-degree safety. We'll see one of those, I'm sure. That's the 90-degree safety. And the serial range is, so this 955, this is about 1935, 36. All right, now I'm about to open this up, and this is a PPK, but for some of you, you're going to gasp. I want to hear auditory gasps when you, when you see this. Check this out. You know, when you first pull this out, you say, okay, it is a commercial PPK. But there's about 1,000 of you who want this right now, because the gray grip is transitional from the brown to the black. I guess they were mixing up the formula. And for a very short period of time, in the late 300,000, this is actually early 400,000. So before it was totally black, they had a great grip. But what makes this so unique, you know how many of you have called me and said, do you ever have a gray finger extension bottom? And the answer is, I just never see them, because in the late war era, they really weren't worrying about your pinky finger. So while the gray grip is very rare, the gray finger extension is even rarer. So to get this come together like this is quite a find, and it might be something that I have to keep. So the next variation I want to cover is a Waffen PPK. So again, this went to the German military, the Waffen stamp. The early one is Eagle 359, and it is high polish finish. This is just a beautiful gun. So the Eagle 359 versus the Waffen Eagle 359. And this is a perfect example of 1940 production. And by the end of 1940, it started to transition to the duller finish because it's cheaper. So not only does the Waffen stamp change, but you can see the finish. It's kind of what we call a military finish, a dull finish, black grip. So this is a late Waffen PPK. Most likely these are issued to officers because rank and file, well, as you've heard me say before, the smaller the gun, the higher the rank. So this was a high-ranking officer. These are fairly rare, and yet in this collection, as we look through here, I'm not going to show them all to you, but there's at least 15 waffen-proof guns. So if you ever wanted a waffen-proof gun, they are not cheap, but we will have these on our website, and that is all the ones that I'm going to show you for now. I was about to move on, but here's one more. Again, when we open it up, you will see this is nickel or chromed. I think it's chrome. Now, well, I've done these videos before when I talked about the finishes. They rarely made a nickeled gun, but the GIs nickeled the guns after the war was over. So, because you were bringing home a souvenir, one of the cool things you could do, and I think a lot of this was done in Germany, after the war they're sitting around with time on their hands, they're sightseeing. I know firsthand because my father-in-law was there in 1946, and he went all over Switzerland and Austria. He bought a lot of pottery and porcelain, no guns, unfortunately. But GIs were buying souvenirs and having them nickeled. So if this gun is nickeled, it actually cuts the value in half because it's not original finish. However, there are a few original nickeled guns, and having checked this one out, it could be all original. And the reason is you can see the slide legend. When you re-nickel something, it gets filled in. Also, the red dot looks original. If you re-nickel it, you have to redo the red dot. That color red works well. The magazine is nickeled. Even the escutcheon and the screw, you can see it's nickeled or chromed. And it's in a serial range where there were a lot of party leaders. Engraved guns, and special presentation guns. So I can never say 100% for sure. I've taken this apart, but I do believe this is one of the very rare original nickeled guns. But of course, everybody who has a nickeled gun says theirs is original. So I'm just letting you know that the owner, the previous owner, was 100% convinced it's original nickel. I just have a hard time saying 100% for sure. It comes in this really nice AK holster. And that's a AK marking, but it's pretty much faded away. Really nice AK holster with an aluminum stud, and this will be a nice find on our website. Okay, I told you I was done with PPKs. I lied again. I didn't realize I have one more, and this one I just have to show you. In fact, I'm going to get inundated, so probably by the time you watch this, this will be gone. Now, this one I had to pay a lot of money for because the seller knew what it was. This is an SS gun. An SS contract, actually the 280 range. It should, in that range, the commercial guns were not numbered on the slide. This one you can see the frame and the slide are numbered, and because I have the database to confirm, this was issued to the SS. Not only the SS, but it was the security forces of the SS, which meant basically Gestapo, secret police, and things like that. A lot of them would be vest pocket guns or carried at your side, but small caliber weapon that's easily hidden. So this is an SS contract gun, and what makes people's eyes pop out is not only the quality. I'm going to call this one 99% fire blue safety. As a matter of fact, as I'm looking at this, I don't think I can sell it. And it comes with a black holster, which the SS guns should come with a black holster. This one is real obviously AK marked. It's a lot clearer stamp. So they had a leading edge where the pouch was here. An AK holster with a leading edge would be correct in black with black stitching. You want to make sure black with black stitching. This would be an appropriate SS holster. And it comes with 2 matching magazines. So this is an original SS rig, very, very highly sought after. In terms of the value, I bid on one this weekend, 2-match mag SS gun. It was on auction this weekend, and I did not get it. I dropped out, and it sold for $7,500. So I'm not saying that that's what this one is worth. I'm just saying that's what one sold for this weekend. Okay, let's do PPs. A lot fewer PPs, but again, I mentioned he had a lot of Walther PPK Ks, this is what the Waffen PP looks like. Again, this would be the duller finish, pretty much. It's got some, it was used basically. It's got wear, and then you see the Waffen, it's actually the Waffen Eagle. So it's a wartime, and the serial range is in the 280,000 range. There's actually a couple of them here. This one with the wooden grips. When they were running out of materials to make the black grips, they did make wooden grips, and you see the Walther banner on the wooden grip. Similar condition. Okay, two PPs here that are worth mentioning. This one is very early. Couple early features. First of all, it's what they call a fat hammer. Just a slight difference, but the hammer is a little thicker, and that was an early feature. So it has the 90-degree safety as opposed to the 60-degree safety. Notice that's where it gets its name, 60-degree versus 90-degree. So this is really early. Maybe we should look at the serial number, 778, and production started at 750,000. The grips will be weighted inside. I won't bother with that. But remember, if you watch the magazines, this is a slab side mag, which was only used on the earliest guns. So it has the correct slab side mag. And then just one other early feature that I'll quickly mention is its slightly extended barrel. The early guns had a slightly extended barrel. You see the difference. Not a big deal, but that's the difference. You see the fire blue safety was an early feature. Just like the early Colts had fire blue small parts, this is a darker blue. That's the fire blue. Early, and then a late 22 caliber. Now, this is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, the red grips. Just like the gray grips, there was a transitional period. For whatever reason, they tried red. Some people think that they had a special significance. They were special orders. I see them all on all kinds of guns, commercial guns, police guns, and Waffen guns. So I don't know that it had a special purpose other than they tried it out for a period of time. 22 caliber, see it's beveled down. And you see the dull finish. This is actually late war. This was made in 1944. So I've said this before, but why is the Walther factory making a 22 caliber when they didn't have enough Walther P38s, they didn't have enough guns, PPs, PPKs, they didn't have enough K98s, they didn't have enough K43s. Why did the Walther factory stop and make 22 caliber? The answer is lost to history, but there is some conjecture about the fact that they still use them for training, target shooting and training, and it was just a cheaper round. So this is actually a pretty rare 22, very desirable because most of them are pre-war or very early in 1938, 1939. Then it jumps all the way to 1944, where for some reason they made 22 calibers again. A rare gun. Okay, then I come to a grouping of P38s. I haven't done much on P38s. I love the P38, as do most of you. Always tell me how much you love your P38s, and I should do more about them. So let's first start with some early ones. Actually, the earliest is, I believe, this one. Yeah, the serial number is H 1000 range. So H means it's a Swedish gun. These are the early grips. They would not be Waffen-proof because this is actually ordered by Sweden for their police, and then also some went to the military. But so this is a 9mm Swedish ordered. In fact, what's interesting is the Swedes ordered P38s before the German government did. That's kind of interesting. But it's similar to the 1900 Luger. If you remember when I talked about the 1900 Lugers, Switzerland was the first military contract. So it's fitting that the Walther factory actually sold the first P38s to Sweden. Condition of this for being a really early gun is absolutely fantastic. Notice the high polished finish, just a gorgeous gun. And here's a second early gun. Most collectors refer to this as the 0 series. Again, very early. They started, this is military production. You see the Waffen stamps. It's actually Waffen 359, which is the inspector at the Walther factory. 0 series, it starts with a 0. Now this one, they did come with matching magazines. This one is just, I think it's about 20 numbers off. But on the 0 series, they were numbered on the side like this. So next, let's jump to 1941. I believe that's right here. This one actually has that reddish hue, which is the way they prep the metal. It's not a different finish. It's the same finish, but with the reddish hue. You do see that a lot in the German guns. I just love the color of this, that reddish color that's on the slide. And let's see, so this one, you see the serial number here. The way these are numbered, I call the toe of the magazine. And so all the 1941s had numbered magazines. In 42, they only did A, B, C, and I think maybe D, but they stopped there. They stopped numbering the magazines because they realized it wasn't that big a deal. People swapped out the magazines so readily. You know, when you're in a unit and you're target shooting, magazines got swapped around so much they didn't see any value to continuing to number the magazines. So up to 42, the first couple letter blocks, they still numbered them. But after that, speaking of 1942, they stopped numbering them in 42. Here's a beautiful AC 42, Walther 42. Again, it's got the waffen stamps. This is in the I block, and so the bottom would not be numbered in the I block, so this is all correct. And the finish on this is just beautiful. There's a little schmutzy up here, but you do see the waffen stamps. So this was went to the German military in 1942. Real quick, here's another AC-42. This one, 2-digit in the F block, and by F, they were no longer numbering, so that was one of the first to come out without the numbering. Number 37, all matching, beautiful condition. Then, of course, we can take a look at a 43. You can see this was, however, is in the Mauser factory. BYF has a slightly different finish than the Walther. I can tell the difference, but there's a slight finish. It's kind of a dusty finish. But this is an early BYF 43 made in the Mauser factory. And it will have waffen stamps that are 135 instead of the 359. So again, just different inspector stamps because different inspectors in the factory. Just for continuity, here's a BYF 44. So you see the change in finish from 43 at the bottom, 44 at the top. It's just, this is a little richer. This is a little weak. It's almost becoming grayer. And then certainly by the end of the war, you actually see what we call the dual tone because it has a phosphate finish. Now the barrel is blued, but if you look at the front strap, you can see how gray it is. It's actually a phosphated finish. And this was from 1944. So this is called a dual tone because it's phosphate and blued combined, and that was only done at the Mauser factory. So those are examples from Walther and Mauser. So one other factory that we have to take a look at, and that is the spree work factory. CYQ was the code for spree work. The waffen stamp was Eagle 88. You'll see that if you look at that waffen stamp on the frame. Also on the other side, you see the Eagle 88. So this is spree work, again, beautiful condition. One thing unique about these is these were made late war, like 1945. Notice the cog hammer. They call it a cog hammer. This one you can see the finer grooves, and then later on they went to, I guess it was just easier to machine the thicker grooves. So they call it a cog hammer because it looks like the cog of a wheel. This one is B prefix, which, so when they were done the alphabet, they went all the way from no suffix A all the way to Z, and then they did the A prefix and B prefix. So this is one of the last ones made in the spree work factory. That factory was captured by the Russians, by the way. So a lot of them are Russian captured and Russian dipped. And this would be such a gun because the B prefix, and if you look above the serial, you'll see the Russian X. Now that one is done very faintly, but the Russians put an X on them and put them in storage. Many of those were dipped. I'm not sure this one was dipped. It may have been, but many of them were dipped, which was just like a thick tarry substance that kept them from, it just kept them in good condition, no rust, no pitting. But they put them away, and for the most part, they were never used. They were later, after the fall of the Iron Curtain, they were brought out of storage and sold to dealers, mostly in the United States. I know they were bringing them in by the thousands at one point, and they're selling them for about $4.50 a piece. But the history of this gun, it went to the German army, captured by the Russians, put in storage, ended up coming to the United States. Now, technically, this should be import marked somewhere. I can't find the import marks because some importers, I know firsthand, some importers that said they never marked them. And if you got caught not marking them, you would get in trouble. That particular person is now deceased, so I don't think they'll go after him. But this one is not import marked. And then this one is from the W block. So again, near the end of the run, probably late 44, early 45. Hey, let's keep moving along across this bed sheet. I need to finish up tonight because I promised my wife we'd get this bed sheet back so we could sleep on it tonight. Just kidding, of course. So here's two French captured guns. Well, they weren't French captured. I take it back. These were made during French occupation. So in the last video, I mentioned actually the MAB. We talked about the Unique. This one is an MAB, French gun made in a French factory, but the Waffen 251 stamp means it was approved to go to the German army. And then this is one we haven't seen yet. This is known as the SACM. I don't know what the SACM stands for. It's also known as the 1935A, model 1935A, and it also has a Waffen stamp right there, which is also 251. This is actually an interesting gun, not only because it's in such pristine condition. I don't think I've seen a better one. If you want just a pristine example, look at that front strap. This is actually not a bluing. If you look at a blue finish gun, this is anodized paint. So kind of like what they put on aircraft, they anodize paint onto aircraft, aluminum aircraft. This was anodized, and it's the process that the French used in that factory, and it seems to hold up pretty well. But it's one of the, some of the other factories, including Walther, experimented a little bit with aluminum frames anodized, but the French made the whole gun in an anodized black paint. Okay, next on my favorite bed sheet here, we have two CZs. These are just great examples because notice the early high polish. Look at the serial number. It's 46,000. And the early high polish finish, just look at the front strap. And then this is the dull military blue, and the serial number 368,000. You can also see a Waffen stamp right in front of the serial number. And then there's a Waffen stamp on the right side of the frame, always very light, barely visible, but it should be their Waffen stamp. And this early one, again, high polish finish, much easier to see, Waffen stamp. They also, some went to the police, and if they went to the police, they'll have, on the trigger guard, they'll have an Eagle K here. The police ones are a little more rare and more expensive. These are fairly inexpensive Axis pistols, worth collecting. I've never shot one, but people tell me they're very accurate and very reliable. I'm going to move on to the Beretta, but I should say from our Czech friends, the CZ was made in Czechoslovakia. The Beretta was made in Italy. This is a late war, you see dated 1944, and it is a dull blued finish. This one is in beautiful condition. It's 32 caliber, some are 9mm, this is 32 caliber. You can see the dull finish. It's in what I would consider mint condition. And then very faintly here is an oval. You probably can't even see it, but it says 4UT, which was the Nazi proof. This went to the Nazi army in 1944. Well, we've been to talk about Axis pistols. We've been to Germany, we've been to Czechoslovakia, we've been to France, we've been to Italy. Why not hit Hungary? So this is a Hungarian JHV, which is the factory code 1943. 30,000 of these were ordered. And this is one of the ones that went to the Luftwaffe. It was a Luftwaffe order, and this one is in remarkable condition. And the magazine will be numbered to the gun, and it's found right here. A lot of people don't look for it. but if you're buying one, you want to make sure, well, you can check and see if it's matching. It does affect the value, obviously. If it's not matching, it still has a lot of value, but if you can get one with a matching mag like this, it's more desirable. Now I have a grouping of sours. They're very much like a PPK. I think they work very similarly, but the PPK is so much more popular, so these are a lot more affordable. This is a commercial gun. Most of them you'll see will be either police marked right here, or Waffen 37. For some reason, the commercial ones are a lot more rare, but for some reason this guy had mostly commercial. These two are commercial. This one is commercial. I rarely see the commercial. And here is the Eagle 37. So that's the Waffen stamp. This one went to the Army. And all of the rest, one, two, three, four commercial sours. They'll be going up on our site. They're kind of rare and a lot less expensive than buying a PPK or a PP. 3 Astras, 2 Astra 600s and an Astra 300. If you don't know much about the Astra, I just did a video. Go to our playlist, and that's where we sang the song It's Raining Astras, and it was. I showed you about 6 Astras. This is also, you know what? Talk about countries. Now we're in Spain. So we're hitting all the Axis countries. This is also Eagle 251, so same inspector as some of the French guns that we've looked at. This is an Astra 300. It comes in 9mm, and the Waffen stamp makes it a little more valuable. We showed you that in the previous video. This one is also Waffen stamp, same place. And then this one is after the German contract, they continue to make Astras. This one would be a little less expensive because it is not Waffen stamped. Again, these are both in 9mm. So here we have some Mauser HSCs. Now, the Mauser factory actually came up with the design for the HSC after selling a lot of these. This is the, some of you are familiar with the 1934. This is a 1914. The 34 has a little bit of change on the frame, so it has a little hump here. So the 1914 became the 1934, became the HSC. A very nice design. I don't like it as much as the PPK and the Sauer, but these are still very popular guns. Now, I skipped over this one, but what makes this a little unique is the magazine is numbered to the gun. Magazine is numbered to the gun. It has a unique holster, pretty unique. I've actually seen this style with a CZ, but in this case, the holster is numbered to the gun. So the only thing this could be, in terms of somebody numbering the magazine, numbering the holster and the gun, it had to be a police-issued gun, making this a little bit more intriguing than your standard 1914. And you can see Mauser 7.65, which is 32 caliber. But let's graduate to 1940. We're now issuing the much improved Sauer HSC. Here's a couple different models. This one is Eagle 655 numbered. Earlier high polish. You see the lanyard built into the frame. Later on, they're going to do away with that. Here's one. This is a later word. Look at the difference in the finish. It's a duller finish. The lanyard is now removed because they weren't using it, so why bother? This is Waffen Eagle 135. So if you know your Lugers and your Waffen stamps, you know that 655 was BYF 41 dated, and the 135 is 42 or 43 dated. So the Waffen stamp gives us an idea of when it was made. So 2 Waffen stamped, and then this one is a little more interesting because you probably can't see that, but that has an Eagle M and then a number after it, which means it was issued to the Navy. And this one actually does have a faint Navy Eagle, the distinct Navy Eagle. Now this one will last for about 30 seconds because these are highly desirable and people jump on them as soon as I get them. This one is particularly nice if you look at that finish, which I would call kind of transitional. It's not really high polish, but it's also not really dull. So the finish is a bit transitional. And then this last Mauser is actually commercial. No Waffen stamp, no Eagle stamp. This is a commercial gun So just like the Sours, they did make some for the commercial market. Now, just to clarify, a commercial, they were not selling these war weapons in your local store. In fact, the German citizens could not generally buy a commercial gun. So when I say it's commercial, that doesn't mean it wasn't issued to a high-ranking Nazi official, because the only people who got permission to get a gun would be somebody in the Nazi Party who said, I need self-protection, and so they would be given a permit. And I've seen the permits before, but just like here in the United States, you have to have a carry permit. In Nazi Germany, if you were a member of the party and you had a gun permit, you could get a commercial gun. So they're kind of rare, and it doesn't mean they didn't go to a Nazi official. They probably did. Okay, I had to shift positions a little bit because my knees were cramping up. If you're as old as I am, you can understand. But we're in Germany for a little bit longer, but you can see we're coming to America. That's a good song, Coming to America. But here's some German pistols. If you look at the reddish grip, you immediately say Krieghoff, and you would be right. There's a 1937 Krieghoff. We've already covered those. They all went to the Luftwaffe. It has the Luftwaffe, the distinct Luftwaffe proof mark stamp. And then the magazine is also Luftwaffe, and it is close to matching, but not quite. So we have a correct Krieghoff magazine, the reddish grips, dated 1937. This one you would think is Krieghoff as well, but little known fact, in 1940, this is Mauser, 42 code is Mauser, and in 1940, for some reason, the Mauser factory bought some grips from Krieghoff, and so there is a small run of 1940 Lugers that had Krieghoff grips on them. So this is the way it came, and this is correct, and it makes it a little more desirable. Okay, the Mauser Broomhandle. Technically, they're called a Model C96. The patent date was 1896, one of the first semi-automatic pistols, and they actually made a full auto version, the Schnellfire, rapid fire. So they made them in full auto, very few, in World War I and a little bit thereafter. Actually, we've talked about the fact that many of those went to China between the wars. And this one is probably has the most wear. This stock, it may not be original. It's not numbered to the gun. It has a lot of wear on it, but it's a commercial gun, still very shootable, and it comes in 7.63. So it's a variation of 30 caliber. You see the fire blue on the top, which is distinct. You'll see this variation. It has Mauser here, and it has cutouts, as opposed to this one, which is very rare, and it's called a flat side, a large hammer, flat side. So if you compare the two, notice the straw color on the trigger, and the fire blue here, and the larger ring. So large ring, flat side, you can see how it gets its name. This is an early gun, very rare, incredible condition. When I saw this, again, I gasped. Maybe you heard me gasp so loud. You can see the fire blue on top, beautiful gun, and the finish is fantastic. Now, whenever we see one this nice, we immediately get worried that it's been refinished. But in fact, it is not refinished. The bore is a 10 out of 10. Absolutely perfect bore. The stock is also beautiful, and it is numbered to the gun. So it's matching numbered to the gun. This is just an incredible find. Again, this might be one I have to keep. You guys get to see. It turns out Santa is a little selfish. Sometimes he keeps the best stuff for himself, that dirty Santa. But one last Broomhandle here actually went to the military. A little bit unique in that you can see the proof mark here and number 120. It also has a military stamp on this side. So it was issued in World War I to the military. But just like the Luger, if you watch my Luger videos, we know that World War I Lugers, after the war, went back, and they're dated 1920. And we talk about the fact that they were forbidden to sell to the military, so they would rework them in 1920 or soon thereafter. But in the 1920s, they would rework them, They would be double dated, so they would say 1917 and 1920, and it just meant it was reworked for the commercial market. This is the same as true of the Broomhandle. Some of the military ones are in 9mm, and no, this one is also 7.63. It was reworked and sold in the commercial market. It does have a stock, but again, I don't believe the stock is matching. You see some fire blue on top, but this probably when it was reworked, they re-blued it, and it has a duller blue. Still, very collectible gun, and I'm sure somebody will want it. Hey, we're done with Germany. Now, what country haven't we been to? Well, we haven't been to Japan. We'll get that another day. But here we have some U.S. military weapons and one lone Canadian. Now, I did make the mistake one time going into Canada. I made a joke. I was going through customs, and the guy said, "Do you have your passport?" And I said, "I have a driver's license." And he said, "You're not in the United States anymore." And I said, as a joke, "Oh, you mean Canada's not part of the United States?" Well, it turns out that Canadians are very sensitive. If you're from Canada, I know you're not part of the United States, but we love Canada. God bless Canada, and send me your comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you recognize this holster, this is a late war Inglis. I believe this is 1944. They're usually dated inside. This one is dated 1945. I guessed wrong. Please don't yell at me. This is a beautiful Inglis. Again, it's a very dark finish, almost like the anodized paint. I'm not quite sure what that finish is. It might be anodized paint, actually. Some of them most of them that went to the military will have a decal right here. The decals break off pretty easily. There's actually a Canadian maple leaf. This one is marked Inglis and Mark I, but it also has an AF. I haven't seen that before. Normally I'd say that's Air Force, but I'm pretty sure in Canada it would be the Royal Air Force. So please let me know if you know what that stands for. If it's Air Force, great. That would increase the value. But this is a Inglis. It's actually a version of the Browning High Power. They had a licensing agreement with Canada, and so they produced these, at least toward the end of the war, they produced a lot of them. And this is the holster that goes with it. There is a spare mag in there as well. Fits in that pouch. Okay, good old USA. This one is a Victory model. The Victory comes in 38 Special. Obviously, it's a revolver. This has case hardening, and this is like a Parkerized finish. Or it's a dull military finish. The action on these is very good. And the grips are always that wooden color. Some of them are marked U.S. Navy at the top. This one is not. But the way you can tell a Victory is the serial number always starts with a V. Victory model, made specifically for the war. Although a lot of these did go to security guards, certainly munitions plants and Navy bases, things like that, where the military police and guards in the factory would use this Smith & Wesson Victory model. Very collectible, by the way. And then the rest of these are 1911 Colts. Now, most of these are reworked, and by the way, we do have some U.S. rifles here that I haven't gotten to. Hopefully you're still with me, or come back another time when I do the rifles. I mean, not another time. You can push pause and go eat lunch and come back, because I'm going to do these rifles. But on these, most of these are reworked. And I'll show you some of the reworked marks. So this one is a Remington UMC, which is a World War I gun. And yet it has a World War II finish and World War II grips. So this was used in World War I, most likely, reworked for World War II. And if I took it apart, I would probably find that the barrel is World War II, because when they reworked them, one of the things they did is they would replace the barrel to make sure it was the rifling, everything was fresh and accurate. That is the inspector proof that is unique to the Remington UMC. And right here you see very faint AA, which is Augusta Arsenal, and that's where the rework was done. Still a very collectible gun, even though it's a rework. The next rework, in fact, this one was snuck up on me. This is a Union switch and signal. Just a beautiful slide, Union switch and signal. The grip is correct. You see the flaming bomb. However, there's the cartouche cross-cannon cartouche. This one has Rock Island auction. It was not only reworked, but this inspector stamp goes to a Remington or an Ithaca. So that tells me they took the slide from one gun and a frame from another. Still, the sum of the parts is worth some money. Next, see, there's the Remington. So we have a Remington. There's the proper inspector for the Remington, and you'll see this is the same inspector. But so it goes, the inspector is actually from Remington, so this one is correct. There's no rework mark, so this is probably an all original Remington. There you see the cartouche. Again, they're often either really light or misstamped. That's pretty typical. This one came with a lanyard, and it is a Springfield Armory. So this is a World War I gun. You see the flaming bomb, which is the factory insignia for Springfield Army, United States property. And this does have the wooden grips, and it has the two-tone magazine with the lanyard. Now, World War II, you don't have two-tone and you don't have the lanyard. You can see here the Springfield Armory Eagle. So this is a World War I. So it's a 1911, not a 1911 A1. Okay, this is a little bit unique. This is, again, a 1911 from World War I. You can tell by the serial number, the wooden grips. Mainspring housing was different. Sometimes it will just be vertical lines like this. Sometimes it's checkered, but that's the modification for the 1911 A1. And it doesn't have that same design in World War I. So this is a World War I configuration Colt. And one thing unique about this is the serial number, which threw me off a little bit. It looks like it was restamped by a monkey. But in fact, in that serial range, I'm going to have to do a little research. Somebody will let me know as well. They had a group of them that were stamped like that. Looks like they were restamped, but again, I think this is original and correct. This is another Remington. I don't see any rework mark. Notice the cartouche again. See how that's stamped? I mentioned they're almost always real light or misstamped. So if you get something like that, people say, I want one that doesn't have the misstamp. Well, that's what they did. They misstamped them. Finally, I have one more Remington. You can see how the finish is really light. The late war ones, they were very light. The parkerized finish was a little bit different. So this is the normal darker finish, and then late war they had a lighter finish, but they are correct. This was not reworked. Okay, we're ready to do the rifles. If you're like me, you just took a little break. Actually, our batteries ran out, so we had to recharge, and we ate some lunch. If you feel like these videos are too long, do yourself a favor. Take a break right now. And we'll come back and do the rifles. But I have some rifles here that I've never talked about before, in particular M1 carbines, and I know a lot of you want to hear about those. First and foremost, though, we see some Garands. There are actually 4 Garands, and this is also called the M1, but it's the M1 Garand. And every one of them is a rework. Now, all original World War II Garands can be thousands of dollars, anywhere from $2,500 to $4,500. Particularly the rare makers would be like a Winchester. This one is Springfield Armory, and if you look right here, it's a 14,000. So this is really, really early. It was reworked after the war, probably for Korea or all the way up to Vietnam. This is earlier configuration for this rear sight. And I want to teach you about Garand thumb. Everybody knows about Garand thumb. I have a friend of mine who has lost the end of his thumb because, and don't try this at home, especially if you're under 18, the way to release this is you put the follower down and then it will shut. But you don't want your thumb in there when it shuts. Let me show you, it's dated on the barrel, but I think this next one is easier to see. So this one is much later. That other one was 49,000. This one is in the, yeah, that's 5 million. So this is much later in the war, and it's made by H&R Arms, so it's kind of a rarer maker. And when I pull this back, you can see the barrel, and you can see, I believe, 1154. So 1954. This was reworked for Korea. So these rework guns sell for less money. Don't get your thumb in there. I have two more, but I'm not going to go over them. I think there is actually one Winchester and one International Harvester. So there's 4 different variations, different makers. But here I have something pretty exciting. So let's talk about this a little bit. All right, now this rare beast is something that I avoid. If I've handled 50 of them, 49 of them were bad, meaning they're made-up guns. So I never buy a sniper rifle. If you want to buy a sniper rifle, you only want to go through an expert or somebody who you truly trust. When people bring me a sniper rifle, they always say this one is real and all original. And I only take them on consignment because once I put them on my site or once you put them on your site or anywhere in public, everybody starts talking about them because they're so rare. And it can be the difference between $2,500 and $12,000 to $15,000. And what I mean by not real is people get the scope, they find the rifle, and they drill the holes and they make it into a sniper. And I can't tell the difference. So I did take this from all the things that I bought. I did not buy the sniper rifle because I said, if it's wrong, I want to be able to send it back. And that's what I do. I put it on. I actually have experts look at it. And then, because anything we sell, we have to stand behind. We have to guarantee. So a couple things to look for. First of all, this is a high turret. It's drilled into the receiver. This is an original scope. And the action is kind of tight here because you can see, you can just barely make it. Past the scope, especially the rubber eyepiece. And it's just a sniper scope on a K98 rifle. One thing about the snipers, they do have this checkered butt plate. Many of them have a safety extension here, but this one does not, so that you can flip the safety up back a little further. Let me show you the markings on the scope. And the serial number, the numbers all match. And this one could, if this one is all correct, and I have not run it by one of our experts, but I plan to do that. It literally just walked in the door yesterday. But I will run it by one of our experts. If it is all original, not a put together gun, it's certainly worth over $10,000. So this one, once we authenticate it, will be on the website. And then the second sniper rifle, we are more familiar with, and we have sold these. They're a little bit easier to tell because this is a K43 or a G43. This one happens to be a G43. The maker is DUV. The G43 or K43, a lot of them were made by Walther. You can see it has the dust cover still intact. And then the scope is a ZF4. By the way, the number on the scope shouldn't match the gun. When people have matching, it's usually not true. It's something made up because they made the scope separate from the gun and then put them together either post-factory or at the factory, but they were not made in the same factory. So they wouldn't match up. This is an all-matching gun. The serial number on the stock is right here. And it matches the gun along with a faint waffen proof. If you remember when I did the K98s, I have a faint waffen proof here. So this one has the rubber eyepiece and the protector along with the piece of leather in the front. These were originally connected, but that strap broke off. This is a very valuable sniper rifle as well. And it works, instead of bolt action, it does work in a semi-automatic fashion. This is the magazine, and push forward. That's the magazine, pops in, chamber around, and you're ready to go. Again, if you want to get your thumb cut off, push that follower down. There you go, great sniper rifle. All right, we're ready for the M1 carbine. A lot of you have asked about M1 carbines. One of my favorite guns, by the way. Okay, so M1 carbines. First and foremost, when I'm at a gun show, and by the way, watching these videos is just like going to a gun show. You get to see so many cool guns. What I look for first and foremost is, see the Bayo lug? No Bayo lug. Bayo lug means it was revised after the war. So World War II, there was no Bayo lug in the original configuration. All of the early original M1 carbines, you basically are looking for two things. There's actually a lot of things to look at, but as a beginner, going to a gun show, the first thing I look for is I walk by anything with a Bayo lug because I don't want a reworked gun. Now, there's nothing wrong with a rework gun. People buy them. They sell for almost a half price of an all-original World War II. But as a World War II collector, I just walk by anything with a Bayo lug. And basically, the Bayo lug means you can put the bayonet. It hooks onto the Bayo lug. So that's what the Bayo lug is for. It hooks on there. So let's put this aside for later because all of the ones, if you look at the rifle rack, also known as a radiator, every one of them you can see that are reworked. So if I say I went all original, right away, bam, 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 no Bayo lugs. Now, the first configuration, no Bayo lug and a flip sight. You can see how it gets its name. Flip sight, you flip it up for longer distance, flip it down, shorter distance. Such an easy, lightweight, 15-round magazine, and you're all charged up, ready to go. It's just a great little gun. I just love the feel of it. One of the first, I shot my first M1 carbine in the Everglades of Florida, and I've loved them ever since. If I was in war, and a lot of people talk about if they were issued one of the Garands that we just moved, first chance they got rid of the Garand and picked up an M1 carbine. It doesn't have the penetration of a M1 Garand, and also the M1 could shoot further distances. Still, it's a great little rifle. This one is fairly rare in that you see the markings. It has the cartouche. Remember the cross-cannon cartouche? We saw those on some of the 1911s. The World War II 1911s have a similar cartouche, and the S prime, G prime, Saginaw gear. And then all of the parts will be marked Saginaw gear. You can see on the receiver, it's marked Saginaw gear. This one is a pretty early one because of the S prime, G prime. Also in here, it's marked Saginaw gear. I can't really see it. It's actually just the initials RSG, which is for Saginaw gear. Also, if you take this handguard off, it's very simple to take off. You unscrew this, pop this up, the handguard comes right off. It's a lot easier than the K98 when I was trying to describe that. These come in .30 caliber. But anyway, take the handguard off and you'll see the same marking underneath, which is Saginaw gear. And then right here, we can see Saginaw gear. So all these small parts are Saginaw gear, except for the barrel. I believe the barrel is marked 1943, and it is Underwood. It's an Underwood barrel. So Underwood did, Marlin and Underwood did some subcontracting of making the barrels for Saginaw gear. But the most common maker is Inland. And so you'll see these made by Inland. The Paratrooper M1 carbine was also made by Inland, and Inland made the most of them. This one, as the war moved on into 1944 and 1945, you'll see no Bayo lug. This one is also marked Underwood and dated, I think, 44. I can't see the maker because in 1944 they added the adjustable sight. So all of the Korean War guns will have the adjustable sight, Bayo lug and the adjustable sight. The original ones, if it's late war, will have the adjustable sight. They did come up with that at the end of the war. This one has the U.S. marked magazine pouch. This is dated 1943. You can see the maker. Interesting, there is an awning company, I see a lot, awning, that made a lot of this khaki gear. This one does have, on the buttstock, it has GHD, I think. So that's the inspector proof right here. There's probably other markings, but this has been maybe sanded or just worn down a little bit, especially with this going back and forth. It kind of covers it up. It does look like it was sanded a little here. But this W, this is a Winchester. They actually sell for a little bit more. And the barrel is Underwood. So again, this was a subcontracted barrel for a Winchester M1 carbine. You can see the finish is it's not like a blued finish, and it's not Parkerized, but it's a duller blue, kind of a gray color. This last one actually in the 6 million range, so it would be later in the war. No bayo, adjustable sight in the back. By the way, this doesn't, when it charges, it doesn't stay back, but there's a little pin here. Push it back and push the pin down, and then it'll stay back if you want to clean or take your magazine out. You can do that. This magazine, KI, I think that's a division of Inland, but KI magazine, and then pop it back. No Garand thumb on these, because push the button back, a lot safer. Pop it out. Let me say something about, this is an Inland, the most common one, and I mentioned late war Inland, and then across here it says Inland Inland Manufacturing General Motors. So Inland was a division of General Motors. Now let's say something about the slings, because believe it or not, I've been looking for a sling for a while now. Finding original World War II slings, it should have, this is probably a better example. Not sure about that sling, but let's take a look at this one. Sometimes they're maker marked. This one is an original World War II sling on a reworked Korean War. The sling itself can be $100. So even though this is a Korean War rework, the C clasp here, in other words, it looks like a C, as opposed to Korean War. So this is a post-war sling, and these are pretty plentiful. They do have a maker mark. This might be, I don't know, I think these are less than $50, whereas the originals can be $100. Now here's one that stood out to me, because I never saw one before. It came with this collection, and I said, what the heck is it? And what he said was, what he told me was, this was made in Korea. So I guess after the Korean War, they had a lot of these US GI M1 carbines left over, but a lot of them were broken and damaged. This is their own Korean sling. This is US metal parts, but Korean. This is Korean-made stock. And these, just because this was made in Korea, it's a little bit unusual and rare. This bayonet was made in Korea. So they basically took parts. This is an Underwood, dated 43. So it was a US rifle that was left behind, and then the Koreans upgraded it with a new stock. I don't know about the magazine, I'll check. Yeah, the magazine looks like it's non-US, has a little rubber piece at the bottom. So they were able to put these together, and then later it was imported to the United States. I don't see an import mark. Again, usually you'll see the import mark on the bottom of the barrel. I don't see it, but this is a Korean reworked M1 carbine. When I pull these out, this looks Korean made, because this is not US. And all three of these magazines are not marked on the back, so I'm assuming they're quality magazines, but this is Korean made. So they're just making the most out of what the US left behind for their use. And this served them well up until more recently, when of course they're issued more modern M16 rifles. Hey, thanks for hanging in there with me. I think it was well worth it. I don't know when I'll get a haul like this. In fact, we're probably going to slow down between now and the end of the year. But make sure you like and subscribe to our channel. Especially this time of year, we want to thank all of you who are supporters of our channel. Thank you so much. And if you want information about our channel, supporting the channel, go to the link to our Patreon program. That's actually run through YouTube, and we have an explanation if you go to the link. Hey, it's been a great year. Thanks for hanging in there with us. We look forward to even better things in 2021.